For decades, science was split into two worlds. On one side, the wet lab, pipettes, petri dishes, trial and error. On the other, the dry lab, code, models, simulations, and spreadsheets. They spoke different languages, worked at different speeds, and lived in different realities. That division is now collapsing. We are entering a new epoch, not just of faster computation, but of intelligent systems that reason, plan, and act alongside scientists. This is not about automating analysis. This is not about writing better code. This is about the rise of Autonomous Agentic Labs, where AI doesn't just assist research, it participates in discovery. From natural language experiments to AI agents designing workflows, writing grants, and orchestrating real-world laboratory robots, science is being rewritten from code to context.
All right, let's get right into it. We're at this really interesting point, where AI is crashing into the world of scientific research. And the big question isn't if it's going to change things, it's how. Are we just building a souped-up tool, or is this thing actually becoming a real teammate in the process of discovery? And the place where this is all happening the fastest? It's biotech. I mean, as Benchling says, biotech is already rewriting life as we know it. So just imagine pouring rocket fuel on that fire. Well, that rocket fuel, that's AI. Okay, so first, let's just talk about the incredible power that AI is bringing to the table. We're talking about a massive shift in how fast R&D happens. And honestly, it's a new wave of startups that are really leading the way here. So get this, AI can now dream up potential new drugs way faster than we can actually test them. And that, of course, creates a huge bottleneck in the pipeline. So what are companies doing? Well, they're now using AI to break that logjam, speeding up all that crucial testing to get these breakthroughs from the lab into the clinic, where they can actually help people. And look, it's not just about doing things faster, it's about going deeper. Some of these startups are basically teaching AI to speak RNA, the actual language of our cells. By doing that, they can simulate experiments that would normally take months and a ton of money. This lets them design way more effective mRNA medicines, which just slashes the time and cost of innovation. And this right here is a perfect example of that jump in efficiency. I mean, instead of spending months in a wet lab, a traditional lab with chemicals and glassware, companies can now just run these incredibly detailed digital simulations. And they're just as accurate as the real thing, but over 100 times faster. And the way they do it is just fascinating. They're teaching the AI the fundamental laws of physics to guide its predictions. It's not just guessing. But the ambition here, it's just staggering. We're going way beyond just making things faster. The goal, believe it or not, is to squeeze billions of years of natural evolution into a single afternoon's worth of computing. This isn't just about tweaking things. It's about unlocking the power to design brand new proteins from scratch whenever we need them. So what does this all boil down to? It's about augmentation. With an AI agent like the one from Amino Analytica, a single protein engineer can suddenly do the work of 10 people. The AI is handling all the grunt work, the research, the design, the simulation, the analysis, and that basically transforms the scientist into a director, a supervisor of discovery.
Okay, so the power is obviously there. It's undeniable. But as these tools get more and more woven into our daily work, a deeper, more philosophical question is starting to pop up about the kind of AI we're actually building.
So is the end game here to build a perfect, sterile black box that just spits out answers on command? Or are we aiming for something more? Something like a real collaborative partner in how we think? And that really brings us to this fork in the road. On one path, you've got AI that's incredibly powerful but sterile. It's colder, it's detached, and it's really easy to measure with benchmarks. But on the other path, you have a contextually intelligent AI. This is a system that actually tracks your thought patterns, that builds on your conversations. It basically acts like a second brain. And this quote from a user talking about GPT-4o, it just nails that second path. The big wow moment for them wasn't just getting answers. It was having an AI that could co-strategize with them. An AI that didn't just understand what they asked, but how they think. And we need to be clear, this is not just some debate about personal preference or user interface. It is, quite literally, a philosophical fork in the road. Are we just optimizing for raw power, or are we trying to build a deeper, more collaborative kind of intelligence? This brings us to this really important idea, relational intelligence. Okay, think of it like this. It's the difference between a calculator and a trusted colleague. It's not about giving the AI a personality. It's about its ability to remember the context of your work, to build on past conversations, and to genuinely help you think better over time. And this is where the frustration comes in for a lot of people. It's this feeling that this relational model, the one that really helps people think and strategize, is getting pushed aside simply because its benefits, things like better thinking, are way harder to measure than a simple benchmark score.
All right, so we've got these two paths, right? Raw power on one side and this cognitive partnership on the other. So how do we move forward? Well, maybe the solution isn't to pick one. Maybe it's to train a whole new generation of scientists who can master both.
So the future isn't about scientists getting replaced by AI. Not at all. It's about creating augmented scientists, people who are skilled in this new art of human-AI collaboration. And that's going to require a completely new set of skills.
And you can already see this happening. Educational platforms are adapting. You've got beginner courses that focus on just analyzing data, but then you have these advanced programs that are teaching scientists how to weave AI agents right into their research workflows. The goal is to build what they call self-driving labs, which are basically automated research systems where the scientist is the director, telling the AI agents what experiments to run.
And this is what that new scientific method starts to look like. You can see AI is woven through the entire thing, from helping draft the initial plan to automating the actual experiments and even building autonomous agents that can run entire studies on their own. And honestly, for anyone out there worried about the future of their job, this is the key takeaway. This whole shift reframes the scientist's role entirely. They become the commander, the strategist, the person who aims the AI's immense power at bigger, more creative, and more interesting questions.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. What are the really big long-term implications here? What does it mean if we build an AI that can act not just as a tool, but as a genuine second brain?
This quote from an online discussion really gets to the heart of it. We have to stop thinking about AI as just a tool, because in a really, really short amount of time, it started to become part of our cognitive environment. It's part of how we think. And if that's true, if AI is becoming part of our thinking process, then how it interacts with us matters just as much as what it produces. The interface, the continuity, that relational intelligence, these aren't just nice-to-have features. They are absolutely fundamental to the quality of thought that this human-AI partnership can create. Which, of course, leaves us with one last big question. Are we just building better tools, or are we actually building better thinkers? Is the ultimate goal here a faster calculator, or is it an AI that makes us more creative, more insightful, and more strategic? Because at the end of the day, this debate isn't about whether we want a friendly bot friend or not. It's about something much bigger. It's about recognizing that when we design these systems, we are, in a very real way, designing the future architecture of our own minds. And that is a decision we absolutely have to get right.